couldn't get in the other. Good evening. My name's Chuck Iovan, and I will be presiding over the Planning Board meeting August 14th, 2024. First piece of business we're going to do is for those in attendance under the provisions of the open meeting law. Attendees are being informed that this meeting is being recorded by Urban Media Arts and will be live streamed on Malden Access MATV YouTube site. I have not been notified that any other video or audio recording of this meeting will occur. The next thing we'll do is we will start with Ronnie with a roll call.
Ronnie Raj Verma, Planning Board.
Risa Gray, Planning Board.
Thodej Gubrasilasi, Planning Board.
Diane Shuha, Planning Board.
Ken Antonucci, Planning Board.
Chuck Iovan, Planning Board.
Eric Bakush, Planning Board.
Pat Hayes, Planning Board.
Eric Henry, Planning Board.
Henry Susi, Planning Board.
Stephanie Stone, Planning Board.
Thank you. And I will just note at the outset that neither Ronnie Verma or Stephanie Stone will be voting on the events this evening because we have a full board otherwise. Okay, the first item on the agenda is going to be 72 Pleasant Street. Diane, could you read the notice, please? Okay, I thought we were going to do the other. Okay, we're going to change that. We're going to do 888 Eastern Avenue first. Diane, if you could read that, please.
The Malden Planning Board will hold a public hearing in the Herbert L. Jackson Council Chamber, Malden City Hall, 215 Pleasant Street, Malden, Mass. At 7 p.m. on Wednesday, August 14th, 2024, on the petition of Bruce Tagonin and Ken Chen, doing business as Chrome Tattoo Studio, on behalf of 100 Maplewood Street, LLC, permit application number C000666402-2024, seeking a special permit under Title 12.12.030 of the Code of the City of Malden to allow body art use of property in the Industrial 1 zoning district, namely a tattoo studio in one storefront space of the building at the property known as and numbered 888 Eastern Avenue, Malden, Mass., and also known by City Assessors Parcel ID number 127433302.
Thank you, Diane. And I see the petitioners are here. If you could, and I'd like to encourage everyone, when you come up to the podium, please sign on the clipboard with your name and a residential address for the record, and also state your name and address when you start your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the board, for your time and consideration this evening. I am Danielle Walsh from Kelleher & Callahan with offices at 1 Center Street in Malden on behalf of the petitioners Bruce Tanganen and Ken Chen, doing business as Chrome Tattoo Studio. The subject property is 888 Eastern Avenue, Unit 10, which was previously known as and numbered 100 Maplewood Street. On the subject property is a single-story building with a full basement that is configured as 10 storefronts, 9 of which are currently occupied, with Chrome Tattoo Studio having signed a lease to take over Unit 10, which is occupied at present by a fitness pole business. Chrome Tattoo Studio has applied for this special permit to allow for body art use in Industrial Zone 1, so that Chrome Tattoo Studio can operate a tattoo studio out of Unit 10 of the subject property. As you know, body art use is only permitted in Industrial Zone 1 by special permit. Chrome Tattoo Studio has filed a waiver of the filing requirements for the floor plans of the entire building and for the building exterior elevations, because the petition involves no proposed changes to these areas of the subject property. Chrome Tattoo Studio has also filed a waiver of topographical plan because the area of the subject property is a flat site where topography is not a concern, and because the topography does not impact the proposed use of the unit as a body art studio. In support of its petition, Chrome Tattoo Studio notes that the proposal does not increase existing violations of dimensional controls or parking, and loading requirements and does not create any new violations. Chrome Tattoo has 4 dedicated parking spots under its lease, which provides sufficient parking pursuant to the zoning ordinance. Additionally, Chrome Tattoo Studio plans on having no more than 2 tattoo artists working at any one time, leaving sufficient parking for clients. In providing tattoo services, Chrome Tattoo Studio will only use ink and tattoo machines, and no additional chemicals will be utilized in the tattooing process, and certainly no hazardous materials will be used or stored on site. While the unit floor plan shows 4 tattoo stations, Chrome Tattoo Studio intends to have no more than 2 tattoo artists working at any one time, with the additional stations being included to allow the working tattoo artists to rotate between stations if one is not clean, or to allow clients resting periods during the application of large tattoos. While the subject property only has 2 loading spaces, Chrome Tattoo Studio does not envision requiring deliveries of more than a few small boxes at a time, likely deliverable by van, without needing to utilize the loading spaces. Thus, Chrome Tattoo does not anticipate further burdening the use of the loading spaces at the subject property. Chrome Tattoo intends on using the basement only for storage and utilities, and understands that this is a recommended condition of approval. Based on the foregoing, Chrome Tattoo requests that this board find that this proposal does not create or increase any violations of dimensional controls or parking requirements. The proposed use will not adversely impact any of the surrounding streets or create a traffic or safety hazard. The proposed use will not be more detrimental to the neighborhood. The proposed use is not in conflict with surrounding land uses. The proposed use is in the interest of the common good. Given the foregoing, Chrome Tattoo further requests that this board approve its request for a special permit to allow for Barty Art Use in Industrial Zone 1. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a few questions, if you don't mind.
Of course.
The services, is it only going to be tattooing, or will there be other body art, like piercing and branding and scarification?
Only tattooing.
Only tattooing. Thank you. What type of debris is generated from the tattoo parlor? Is it just something that can easily be handled in the whatever trash removal program they have? And will any of it be contaminated, like medical waste?
That's a good question. Bruce? The sharps. So there will be sharps that will be disposed of. The petitioners are planning on utilizing a sharp disposal service. So they'll...
Sharps for the needles.
Yes, yes.
But there isn't anything else that they need, like gauze or any type of thing to control bleeding that they need to handle specially?
Yeah, just disinfectant and things of that nature, not blood or medical waste.
Okay, so no soiled gauze or anything like that that will have blood in it. What would the hours of operation be?
10 to 6.
Monday through Friday, or 7 days?
Monday through Saturday.
Very good. Does the facility have a dumpster that they can use, or do the tenants of 888 put their trash out in the city program?
We're not aware of whether there's a dumpster on site or not.
Okay. Have your clients operated a tattoo parlor before?
No, but Mr. Tanganen is a tattoo artist.
Okay, so they've worked in one, but they just haven't owned their own.
Correct.
Okay.
And they're both Malden High graduates, Mr. Tanganen and Mr. Chen.
Thank you. Let's see. Does anyone else have any questions for the petitioner? Ken Antonucci.
Yeah, so I'm just wondering if there must be some kind of any special permits or anything to go through the Board of Health to get this approved as well?
Yes, after this first step of the process is complete, if they achieve the special permit, then they will move forward with getting the permitting through the Board of Health.
Okay, and the Board of Health would most likely prescribe or mandate whatever disposal methods are necessary?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Welcome.
Any other questions for the petitioner? Go ahead, Michelle.
Just to follow up, that's the state Board of Health you're talking about, not the local Board of Health?
I believe it's the local Board of Health. I think it's for the city of Malden.
Okay. I wasn't aware that they needed any license or anything from the Board of Health, but I may not be correct in that, so, okay. But do they need to be licensed by the state? Is there a state professional licensing?
Yes, Mr. Tangenon is licensed.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Michelle. Eric Henry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick question. Do you foresee anything with your client occupying this space that would have them to partake in any installation or repair or replacement of sidewalks or any driveways to perform in the performance of their job?
No.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Is there anything else that you'd like to add?
No, Mr. Ivan, thank you.
Thank you very much. At this point in time, I'll take anyone who would like to speak in favor of this petition. Anyone to speak in favor? Diane, do you have anything to read in favor?
It's from Stephen Winslow. It says, "Thanks for sharing. I have not received any comments from abutters or other residents either in favor or opposed to this use. I am supportive of issuing the special permit as conditioned. Tattoos have become commonplace / mainstream over the decades. The use fits well with other beauty and health businesses that have come to be located at 888 Eastern Avenue, and the parking should be sufficient to serve the small group of tattoo artists that will be working on the first floor. I agree that the basement should be only used for storage / non-retail use." Stephen Winslow, Ward 6 Counselor, and it was dated August 14th, 2024.
Thank you, Diane. Is there anyone else that would like to speak in favor? Seeing and hearing none, I declare that part of the hearing closed. Is there anyone that would like to speak in opposition to this petition? Anyone to speak in opposition? Diane, do you have anything to read in opposition?
I do not.
Thank you. And last call, anyone in opposition? Seeing and hearing none, declare that part of the hearing closed. Michelle, can you take us through your staff report and recommendation, please?
Yes. So I'm reading from the report called Planning Report and Recommendation dated August 14th, 2024. I will not read it verbatim into the record, but it's incorporated herein by reference into the record. So you heard about the subject property. We've given you a list of the other tenants that are in the other spaces. This was a list provided by petitioner's attorney, who I understand received it from the property owner. So as you can see, there are 10 units, and 9 of them are currently occupied. The petitioner, as we heard in the presentation, will take the place of one of the existing tenants, the one that's in Unit 10. Use and occupancy of the basement space is restricted to only storage of non-hazardous materials. That's per building commissioner Nelson Miller. Originally provided that opinion May 2022, and it was just confirmed August 12th of 2024. I've given you a description here of the plans that were filed. I will note that the site plan that you're looking at, called Site Layout Plan Proposed Retail Building, with the revision date May 10th, 2022, is the plan that was approved by the Board of Appeal when the variance for the loading spaces was recently granted, which was September 20th, 2023. So that's the approved layout. Zoning and occupancy, the property is classified as part of the Industrial 1 zoning district. The proposed business, which is tattoo parlor, is classified as body art use. Body art use may be allowed by special permit in this district. Some of the other existing businesses, namely general offices, recreation for gainful business, retail sales, retail services, are allowed by right in this district. The esthetician, which is classified as medical center, was allowed by special permit by this board in case 2020-22-08. I've given you here the definition of city, that the city zoning ordinance contains for body art establishment. And you can read that. That's where it describes some of the different practices and procedures that fall within that definition. Direct abutters to the north of the Boston, Maine, Saugus Branch abandoned railroad right-of-way used in part for the public multimodal trail, the Northern Strand Community Trail by to the sea, on the other side of which are 2 single-family dwellings on Wade Street and a 4-family dwelling on Maplewood Street. To the east, a 2-family dwelling and recreation for gainful business. To the west, on the other side of Maplewood Street, a gasoline filling and service station and motor vehicle truck repair business. To the south, on the other side of Eastern Ave, warehouse. To the southwest, on the opposite corner of the intersection, a convenience store, manufacturing, and warehouse. The building violates both side yard setbacks. It was allowed by variance granted by the Board of Appeal on March 20th, 2019. It is exempt from the rear yard setback requirement because it abuts the railroad right-of-way. The property complies with all of the dimensional controls. The proposal does not increase existing violations or create any new violations of dimensional controls. Parking and loading for the existing building, a total of 38 parking spaces and 7 loading spaces are required. I've given you the breakdown here based on what use is in which spot and the parking requirement, square footage, etc. We don't know the use of Unit 3, so that parking would be to be determined, but based on the ones that we know, a total of 38 are required. 38 parking spaces, 7 loading spaces. Again, because the basement is restricted to storage only, parking is not required. The site plan depicts 40 spaces. The layout is conforming. The 2 loading areas have conforming dimensions, but the deficiencies in number of loading spaces was allowed by variance, again granted by Board of Appeal, September 2023. The proposal creates no violations of parking requirements and does not increase existing violations of loading requirements. The parking for body art is the same as it is for the existing use of that space, 4 spaces per 1,000 square feet. Proposal did not require a traffic impact study per your rules and regulations. I will note the property is also the subject of a special permit granted by this board in case 20-04 that was to allow the ledge removal necessary to construct the basement of the building. Question came about a dumpster. There is no dumpster on the approved site plan. There is no dumpster on site. I was out when I did the site visit. There's none on site, and there is no approved location. It would need to be within certain setbacks, and I believe there is not a spot to put it, and there is not one proposed. There's not one existing. Findings required to grant the special permit. The board would need to find that any creation or increase in violations of dimensional controls or parking requirements will not be more detrimental to the neighborhood, that the traffic and traffic patterns generated by the proposed use will not adversely impact any of the surrounding streets or create a traffic or safety hazard, that the proposed use will not be more detrimental to the neighborhood, that the proposed use is not in conflict with surrounding land uses, and that the proposed use is in the interest of the common good. One other comment I just want to note I want to make. You had asked about the hours of operation, and we heard what the petitioner's proposed hours of operation are. I will note that city ordinance does allow retail stores to operate, which is what this would be considered, 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. So they would be allowed to have that operation. If they want to go any further than that, they would need to get outside those hours, either earlier or later. They would need to get a license from the city council.
Thank you.
And the recommendation is made prior to the public hearing, provided that the board makes the required findings that a special permit be granted, subject to the following conditions. Do you have questions, or do you want me to read this?
I don't have any, and I
Okay.
don't see anyone pinging in.
Okay.
So if you
I'll continue,
proceed,
okay.
thank you.
So the recommendation that a special permit be granted subject to the following conditions. One, the special permit only allows occupancy of 943 square feet on the first floor for a tattoo parlor. The basement, 932 square feet, may be used only for storage and utilities, and any other practice or procedure classified as body art establishment as defined by Title 12 of the Code of the City of Malden, for example, body piercing, branding, scarification, is expressly prohibited. As the board knows, these conditions can be amended in the future, so if another tenant moves in and wants to do any of these other practices, they could come back and petition to amend the special permit. But since we're dealing with this particular tenant right now, and that's what their proposal is, and this is the first time for this type of business in that location, I would recommend you put this type of restriction, limitation on the business, at least initially. 2, all development shall be as per plans except as modified by these conditions. Minor modifications of the floor plan are allowed. 3, 4 on-site parking spaces shall be designated for the body art use of 943 square feet. And 4, install, repair, replace sidewalks and driveways, perform necessary and incidental work adjacent to the property to the satisfaction of the DPW director. That's a condition that is required by ordinance. What will happen is the DPW director will walk the site. If there are any issues, the property owner would need to address them. This special permit will run with the property, even though it's going to be this petitioner or this tenant that could exercise. A future tenant could also exercise a special permit. I believe because that's a fairly new building and fairly new site work has been done, I believe all the sidewalks are in good condition, curb cuts, et cetera. There were new curb cuts added, driveways, et cetera, when the building was constructed a couple years back. And that's everything I have.
Okay, hold on. Risa Gray has a question. And then Ken Antonucci has a question.
Thank you. Michelle, you answered the question, actually. It was about the fourth item. So. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ken Antonucci.
Yeah, it was about the same question, I think, but I just want to make sure I'm clear on it. You said that it's a required condition, number 4, but it's not the petitioner who's getting the special permit, it would be the owner of the property that would be required to do the upgrades or repairs?
That's correct. That's correct. The petitioner won't be able to exercise a special permit if the conditions aren't met, however. So, the special permit does run with the property.
Right, it runs with the property.
Right, it's not, you're not making it specific to this petitioner.
Okay, but there's no representation of the owner of the property here? Right, they're representing the petitioner, right?
Yes, thank you.
Yes, that's correct. The property owner is not here. We have been in conversation with him. We do have an assent from him to this petition.
Okay. So as long as the property owner is aware of all
And
this.
he has seen the conditions.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, and you understand all the conditions? You've seen the conditions and you understand them and agreeable to them?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions for Michelle? Is there a motion? Ken Antonucci.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to grant the special permit with the 4 conditions.
Very good. Eric McCush.
I'll second that motion.
Eric McCush seconds Ken's motion to approve the request with the stated conditions. Okay. Are you all set, Michelle?
Yes.
Let me get started. Get rid of the podium. Okay, go ahead, Michelle.
So a yes vote is to grant the special permit with 4 conditions. Ken Antonucci?
Yes.
Diane Chuha?
Yes.
Tawadej Gabrasalasi?
Yes.
Risa Gray?
Yes.
Pat Hayes?
Yes.
Eric Henry,
Yes.
Eric McCush,
Yes.
Henry Susi,
Yes.
Chuck Ioven.
Yes. Petition's been granted with conditions. Thank you very much. Okay, the next petition that we'll hear will be 7280 Pleasant Street. Diane, if you could read the notice, please.
Yes. The Malden Planning Board will hold a public hearing in the Herbert L. Jackson Council Chamber, Malden City Hall, 215 Pleasant Street, Malden, Mass. At 7 p.m. on Wednesday, August 14th, 2024. Excuse me, on the petition of Catherine Cruikshank and the Downtown Paw on behalf of Dana Family Series, LLC, and Herman Dana Foundation, LLC. Permit application number CMID-064854-2024. Seeking a special permit under Title 12.12.030 of the Code of the City of Malden to allow kennel use of the property in the Central Business Zoning District, namely to add overnight boarding services for dogs and cats as the existing dog pet daycare business in the storefront space known as 72 Pleasant Street at the building at the property known as and numbered 72-80 Pleasant Street, Malden, Mass., and also known by city's assessors parcel ID number 052274407.
Thank you very much, Diane. And I see the petition is present. If I could remind you, make sure you sign the clipboard, name and address for the record, and also state your name and residential address for the record when you start speaking. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Catherine Cruikshank. I live at 20 Hillside Terrace in Malden. I am the owner of the Downtown Paw. As the owner of the Downtown Paw and a lifelong Ward 1 resident in Malden, we're here this evening to discuss the special permit for 72 Pleasant Street here in Malden Square. Before we begin, Michelle was just handed the proposed change that we made this morning. It was a minor change. I have copies for all of you to look it over, as well as 2 photos for reference for something in my speech in case you're not familiar with them.
Do you want to hand them out?
Yes, please. Thank you.
I apologize that the print is so small. Does everybody have their copy? Yes? Okay. After looking over the original plans, I decided that it would be best to switch the 2 back rooms that we have for use for cat boarding with the office space. The rooms are pretty similar in size, and all we would be switching is the office space would be moved into the kitchenette, and the cat boarding would be moved into the office space, so they have a particular space of their own with nothing else in there. Nothing in the kitchenette needs to change, appliances, nothing like that. We're simply just switching the titles of the rooms. The Downtown Paw currently offers dog daycare, pet grooming, dog training, along with food, treats, and accessories for both dogs and cats. We opened in February of 2022 with no prior client list and no employees. After 2 short years, we average 350 check-ins per month for daycare and can have up to 35 dogs a day on our busiest days. We've also become the go-to spot for cat grooming in Malden and have clients from all over the North Shore.
We currently have over 40 five-star reviews with an average rating of 4.9 stars. One of the most requested services that we hear from our clients and customers through phone calls and emails on an almost daily basis is, do you offer boarding? And in particular, do you offer cat boarding? This is the reason that we're here tonight, and I'm here to answer any questions that you might have. Our facility is already set up to do the boarding that we would needed. We're fortunate to not need to do any build-outs or construction for the addition of this request. The kennels and supplies that we need are used every day with our daycare dogs. As you can see on the proposed floor plan, we've arranged some of our rooms at the store to have a dedicated space for our overnight guests and a separate area for our cat boarding to make sure that they're separate and to keep them minimize the stress as much as possible. During the summer, the number of dogs averages roughly 17 to 20 a day, and the remainder of the year we typically have between 25 and 30. If boarding is added to the services that we offer, the dogs would be in daycare during the day when they stay with us. Per Malden Animal Control, we are limited to 45 animals per day. That includes dogs and cats combined. In this case, at 45 a day, staff would be added to accommodate the additional dogs and cats. Animal Control Officer Kevin Alkin planned on being here, but I spoke to him just before. He unfortunately couldn't make it. He is a frequent visitor to our store. We have a great relationship with each other, frequently help each other out with stray dogs that they find in Malden and so on. He wanted me to make sure that it was noted that he is in full support of being granted the special permit. For those of you that aren't aware, a kennel attendant or a daycare attendant is the individual that works in the daycare rooms with the dogs. We currently have 3 employees, 2 of which are daycare attendants and a groomer. As the number of dogs increase, we plan on adding staff to keep the ratios of roughly 12 to 15 dogs per kennel attendant. Currently, there are no state regulations for human-to-dog ratios in daycares in Massachusetts. However, the industry standard is commonly between 30 and 40 dogs per person. When animals are in the facility during the day or overnight, there is someone on shift at all time. Pets are not left unsupervised or left alone. We value the quality of care over the quantity of dogs that we can have. We're currently open Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. for daycare. Grooming is Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, as well as 2 Saturdays a month. With overnight boarding being added, we would allow for pickup and drop-offs on Saturdays and Sundays, and then add an additional day of daycare on Saturdays as needed. We typically host weekend daycare during the busier holiday months, October through December. In regards to cleaning and trash, the facility is cleaned multiple times during the day with kennel-specific cleaners. We also have custom pet air filters. There's 3 of them, 2 in daycare, 1 in our retail space. That cuts down on dust, fur, and odor. Because we don't have an outdoor space at our location, the dogs are taught when they start daycare with us to use specific areas in daycare that are made of artificial turf with grates underneath that allows for quick and easy cleanup for any waste that's there. We have private trash pickup that comes twice a month to dispose of any trash. Waste is collected and disposed of immediately to cut down on odor and the possible risk of infection to other dogs. We don't see that we'll need to make any adjustments to the trash pickup as needed, but if we do, we will add an additional day, and our trash pickup company is okay with adding an extra day to their schedule. We would begin to offer boarding at the downtown PA when occupancy permit is issued, the special permit's granted. On the proposed floor plan, we plan on using what was previously our storage room and turning it into the overnight room. We have kennels and crates for the dogs that are used to sleeping in crates, which they're typically more comfortable in when they're somewhere new. But we also have couches and chairs that they can choose to sleep on if they're not kennel trained at home. The cat setup will be a little different as they don't have the option to sleep in a crate or on the couches. We bring in catios, which is the pictures on the second page, to show you what they look like. This allows them the ability to walk around, to climb, to play. They're much less limited in the space that they have compared to what the traditional ones look like, where they're typically vertical, about 5 or 6 feet in height. The dogs and cats are be kept in separate rooms the entire time that they're with us. At no point during their stay will they be intermingled. This was the change that we made this morning, deciding that moving them into the office space and switching what office space we do use into the kitchenette to make sure that we have a full room between them. Even though they're kept separate and we have gates on each doors, we thought it would be a more efficient use of the space to give them their own dedicated room. Regarding community and client support for boarding, we have a petition with, I believe, 114 signatures. I also have letters from local businesses, including both of our abutting neighbors, All Seasons Table and 00. We also have letters from Bodeborg, Cornucopia, and Peg Crow. These ones I only have digital copies of. They came in today after everything had been printed. But I can happily email them over to anyone that would like a copy.
Yeah, if you could email them to me.
Yep.
But we'll need them, I don't know if you want to read them at that time. We'll
I can
them
read the
into
letters if you'd
record.
like to hear them, the ones that aren't printed,
When
but
you
I do
get to
have
that point.
them, two
When
of
we
them
get
that
to
are.
that point in favor, we'll read them into the record from here,
Okay,
if you would provide them for us to use it.
yep, absolutely.
Thank you.
Or you can email them to me and I'll get them right here on this iPad.
Okay, I
Yeah,
can do that as well.
when you finish your presentation, thank
Sure.
you.
Yep, so that is the downtown PWA and what our plan is for that, so thank you.
Before you go, I know you said it, I just didn't pick up on it. What are the hours of operation?
Currently, daycare is Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. We offer weekend daycare, typically Saturdays from 10 to 4 during the holiday season, normally October through December. And with the daycare dogs being there and the boarding dogs, we will, if needed, we'll add an additional day of daycare on Saturdays.
But you don't do any Sundays?
No, not at the moment.
And are you currently hosting cats? Or will that be a new service you'll be providing?
The cat boarding will be a new service. The only cats that we have currently are those that come in for grooming appointments, but they're typically there between an hour and a half, and then they're sent back home with their parents.
Okay. No, thank you. Hold on a second, I had a few other questions. So I saw a great picture of what the cats are going to be in.
Yes.
Is it a similar, do you have to buy new equipment to host the dogs overnight for the crates and couches and things like that? Or are those already available as part of your daycare service?
We already currently have what we need. If we have more dogs boarding that are crate trained, we can always add in more crates. None of the crates or sleeping arrangements that we have for the dogs are like permanent structures like you would see in typical kennels. It's commonly referred to as free boarding, which means that the dogs have the ability to sleep in the crates or out. But we currently use what we have now for our daycare dogs, which is why we don't have any additional work or build out needed to board the dogs overnight.
And what is your estimation of what number of dogs and what number of cats will be boarded overnight?
Boarding fluctuates depending on seasons. It's more common during school vacations, summer, and holidays. During the holidays, I expect we be at that 45 number for at least half of our dogs for daycare, because we still need to make sure that we have room for our daycare dogs that are our everyday clients that come in. So we were planning on probably maxing out boarding between 15 and 20 dogs at a time.
15 and 20 overnight stays?
Yes. Because they'll be in daycare the next day, and that counts towards our 45 capacity.
Thank you. Let's see, you hit customers per day, and you hit that one. Nope, thank you. I'm sorry, Eric McCush.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The catios, how many cats fit in a catio?
Typically, it's only one.
Okay.
We plan on bringing in 3 of them, but depending on the sizes that you get, they come in typically 4 foot, 6 foot, and 8 foot. If we brought in the 8 foot ones, we could cut them and divide them in half to give the cats both 4 feet, which would be sufficient space for them. But at the time, I don't think the cat boarding will be as popular as the dog boarding. So I can't imagine having any more than maybe 2 or 3 cats on the boarding schedule.
Okay, thank you.
Risa Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What is a typical schedule for the animals between 6 p.m. and 7 a.m. or from closing to opening?
Sure. So when the dogs, our daycare dogs, leave by 6 o'clock, those that are staying with us overnight would then they would go through dinner. They would have probably about an additional hour or so of play before we would move them into the overnight room that we've been calling it. Most of our dogs that we have now are used to being in the overnight room. Parents request that their dogs take breaks or take naps during the day, depending on their energy levels, or some puppies they'll play nonstop all day without stopping. So it's already a room that they're familiar with, that they know when they go in there, it's time to settle down, it's time to be quiet. And then they would be kept calm in that room. They wouldn't be like daycare overnight. So they wouldn't be running free through the facility. There would be, minimal barking, minimal noise to do that.
And there's one person planned to be there?
Depending on how many, boarding is typically easier to do with less people than during the day. Since they've been in daycare all day playing, by 6 o'clock they're usually exhausted. Half the time parents on the floor trying to get their dog to stand up to come home. So I don't foresee that being a problem, but if we do have dogs that say, occasionally may not get along or have more anxiety, it's easy enough to bring in somebody else to spend the night. So there's more than one of us.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Kenneth Tanucci, and then I have another question.
So regarding the overnight staff, I mean,
No, you're not on, and it's not letting me activate you. Okay?
okay.
Go ahead.
All right, so regarding the, sorry about that.
No worries.
Technical difficulties. Regarding the overnight staff, where, would the overnight staff hang out? I mean, it doesn't look like there's any spot for staff per se.
In my experience from working in daycares and doing overnight boarding, we stay right in the room with the dogs. One of the couches or the chairs that we'll be bringing in that we have in the office, which is currently the office now, will be brought in, and we stay in the room with the dogs.
Okay.
So we'll be with them all night.
All right, and then as far as the cat daycare and overnight,
Cats are much more self-sufficient, so we'd be able to just kind of go in and check on them as well, whereas
Right,
the
but-
dogs, they prefer to have somebody with them.
but also as far as co-mingling them or whatever, so I know Eric McCush asked is pretty much just one per catio is what
Yeah,
you're
so
talking?
ideally, it would be one per catio. If we have more boarding than that, we could either decide if bringing in another one of the catios works, or if it's easy enough to just put a divider that lets it so they can't see the other side, so we don't have to worry about interactions between them.
Yeah.
Because they don't get along with other cats as well as dogs
Yeah,
do,
no,
so it's
have-
important to make sure that they have their own
I've
space.
had cats, and I know that they don't necessarily like other cats.
No, they're very
Especially strangers, yeah.
They're very independent, so we
Yeah.
want to keep that in mind when we're with their boarding as well.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Of course.
And will the expectation of the attendant be that they have to stay awake and check on everything, or is it the type of thing where they'll check them occasionally and then sleep overnight, or?
It will vary on the group of dogs that we have. I know from my personal boarding experience that we have some nights that dogs that will go, they will sleep all through the night. They won't wake up. We have others who will have, some anxiety from being away from home that might prefer to sleep, next to you. That would keep you awake, but from personal experience, you typically don't sleep all night. It's kind of on and off because you're constantly waking up to check on them. If somebody needs to use the bathroom, we'll bring them to our pet relief stations, bring them back into group. But I wouldn't say it's going to be a solid 8 hours.
Okay, and you mentioned that you get rid of the waste right away.
Yes.
How does that work?
So we use the compostable dog bags. Those are then tied off and put into separate trash barrels that we have throughout the room. At the end of each day or during the day, if they get filled, those are taken and placed in the trash storage that we have
Okay.
in a shared space below.
And then picked up by your service?
Yep,
at
and they're
that
picked
time?
up every other week.
Okay, I wasn't sure if it was done immediately that you got rid of it.
It's taken off of the daycare floor immediately, off of the grass patches, and put into the smaller trash bins until those are full, and then we move them into the actual trash barrels.
Okay, thank you. Stephanie Stone.
You were talking about the state regulations around the amount of employees needed for a kennel per dog, and I was curious if there are other more specific regulations around overnight boarding and the role the animal control officer plays in terms of inspecting the facility.
Officer Elkins has been down to the store to do his initial inspection, which is how he determines the number of dogs or animals that we can have at max. Massachusetts doesn't have any regulations when it comes to dog daycares. There are some that are in the works that we've been keeping an eye on for when they do come through. Those are changes that we'll have to mandate that to go in anyways. But again, from personal experience, I've worked in places where I was the only one on an overnight shift with 100+ dogs being kenneled, and during the day you typically see large yards with the dogs. There's anywhere from 40 to 60 dogs per person that's out there, and working in those situations is just incredibly unsafe and very frustrating on the team and the dogs, which is why when I opened this, I wanted to do it on a much smaller scale.
And do you anticipate more frequent trash pickup being necessary with overnight animals?
As the number of dogs increase and the boarding, if it takes off, in the way that we hope, there would be more trash, and I'd be happy to add an additional day for trash pickup to take care of that.
Great, thank you.
Of course, thank you.
I have no further questions.
Thank you. Eric Henry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's incredible that with regards to the state and the lack of regulation. But my question is, has it been in the past or conceivably that you could possibly have days, or that you've had days that you've actually had more than 45 guests?
No. So one way that we make sure that we don't reach over capacity is all of our clients are signed into an online portal. The system is capped at 45, and if we know we have staff members that are going to be out that day or someone's on vacation, that occupancy number gets dropped to a more reasonable number if there's only going to be 1 or 2 of us there. With parents, they have to pre-register their dogs for daycare so we can look ahead of time to see who's coming in. And with that occupancy limit on the portal that they use, if the number of dogs is scheduled, say the limit is set at 20, and you try to register as the 21st dog, it'll give you a warning that says, uh-oh, capacity is full for today. You can't drop your dog off at daycare. So that's one way that we make sure that we stay under capacity, because if the dog isn't on scheduled to come in for daycare, we don't have it as a walk-in service.
Right, understood that. So let's take, for example, if you were open for, say, 10 hours.
Yep.
And someone scheduled for 4 hours from 8 to noon, and then someone else scheduled for 4 hours from 4 to 8. And enough iterations of that could possibly have put you within the less of 45 on site at one time, but actually over 45 for the day. I guess that's the question I'm asking.
It's 45 per moment in daycare at the time. So we could have 40 that are there in the morning, have 30 of them leave, and then have another 20 come in, and we would be okay with that. We just can't have more than 45 animals in the store at one time.
Correct. So you'd be less than 45, but you'd be for 70 for the day.
If that was the case with half days switching in and out, yes.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Risa Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Since you don't have an outdoor space and there's a possibility of only 1 employee overnight, is there a plan in case there's an emergency where the pets need to be evacuated? What happens?
We do rehearse different drills at daycare just to make sure that we're able to grab all of the dogs. One of the main things that we do is all dogs have to keep a collar on at all time, not one of the breakaway ones. So if there is an emergency, that we need to get the dogs on, they're already collared and ready to go. We also have 2 staff members that live close who have asked to be on standby in the event that we need someone else to come and get them. But hopefully that's not an issue that arises, but it is something I can bring up with my team for us to rehearse to make sure that we're able to handle that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, is there any other questions? Michelle, do you have any questions?
Yes, thank you. Just a couple questions.
Sure.
Is the number 45 based on the size
Yes.
of the premises? So the animal control officer, Kevin Alkins, he looked at the square footage and that's what he based it on?
Yes, he came in and did his walkthrough.
Okay.
And at first, our number was actually at 25 when it was just me, and I was letting in small numbers of dogs at a time. And then once we gained more staff members, we had Kevin reevaluate, and that's when he upped the number to 45.
Okay, so that was my question. If you were to add more staff, do you think he would increase that number?
I think 45 for the space that we have is pretty sufficient.
Okay. I was also asking, just because I know you do have the retail space out front, if you reduce the retail and there was more area for the dog daycare, do you think the number, so he based it on the area the dogs can go, not the whole
Right, it's
place?
based on the area of the
Okay.
daycare rooms, not the square
Okay.
footage of the entire
So
facility.
it could possibly increase if those
It could
spaces?
if we took the wall down to make retail smaller or,
Okay.
you know, rooms in the back, but I think 45 is more than
Okay.
sufficient for the space we have.
Okay, and then my other question, do you take the dogs out? Is there like a dog walking part of
It's
this
an option.
business, or?
We don't have dog walkers, but we do have different daycare options that the parents can sign up for. The regular full day is having the dogs, they're inside the facility all day. We have a deluxe option, which allows the dog a 15 to 20-minute walk outside midday, as well as daycare. So that is something that parents can add on to if they want. Most of the parents are pretty impressed that we have them all using artificial turf to limit, you know, of course, there's accidents, dogs that they either miss or sometimes I think out of spite they do it. But yeah, that walking is an option that we can do.
And who does that, a staff person, or you have somebody else do?
One of our team members will take care of it.
Okay, great, thank you.
Last question I have is, do you experience any problems with drop-off and pickup? Where do people park?
When they come in, we usually let them know that parking is available on Pleasant Street, there's garages, and then there's the lot on Pleasant Street as well. We have had some nights where Malden Square can get incredibly busy, where it's impossible to find a parking space. If that's the case, we tell parents to call us when they're just about pulling into the square. We'll get their dog ready, and it's almost like a curbside pickup for your dog.
Okay, so
We'll
there's
walk
not
them
double
out.
parking and triple
They,
parking?
yep, we try not to let, we only have a couple of customers that have had to do that. Fortunately, cars move in and out pretty quick because of the restaurants and Uber Eats picking up and delivering. So I would say maybe once or twice a week we have to run a dog out, which it only takes a second. They call us, we're outside waiting for them. As soon as they're there, they load up and go.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Go ahead, Michelle.
Yeah, one other question, and we had communicated by email about this revised plan. Would you be able to submit a clean, what I would call a clean copy of this?
Yes,
So that doesn't have that would have the correct labels and wouldn't have the crossouts. Only that way it will be incorporated into the permit. And in the future, you know, the future city officials will know which plan was approved.
Yes,
by
I
this
printed
board.
out the previous one that I had sent to you, but there is a clean version of it that I will email to you.
Okay, with today,
for
and
you
it
to
would
have.
be, just so the board knows what it would be approving, so the cat room and office space are switched.
Yes.
So the plan that you have in your package, that's the full-size plan dated July 2024, and I say full-size just meaning it's an 11 by 17 version, is going to have the one change where office is cat room and kitchenette. I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong.
Yep, originally
plan.
we had the cat boarding in with the
Okay.
kitchenette, and the office space was staying in office space. We're simply just switching the catios with the office space. That way they have a designated room. The walls are much more square, and we have more space to work in that room. It's a more efficient use of that space. we
Okay,
have.
so there's no office?
No, it's very rarely used. So
Okay.
if anything, it would just be a small desk that I would need in the
Okay,
kitchen.
so it'll be office and cat room? That'll stay together, the office, cat room?
The office, we were going to shift over into the kitchenette. So the cat room
okay.
is just a cat room, nothing else is in there.
Okay, so on the plan, so everybody understands that, so on the plan, you'll show cat room, and then you'll add office to kitchenette?
Yes.
Okay, just so that we'll have a correct plan in the file for the permit and future permitting, if you grant the special permit for tonight.
Okay, any other questions, Michelle?
No.
Does anyone else have any other questions for the petitioner? Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, just thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. At this point, we will entertain anyone that would like to speak in favor of the petition. Anyone speak in favor? Diane, do you have anything to read in favor?
Yes, I do. A letter dated August 14th, 2024. This is, Dear Chairman Iovan and members of the Planning Board. I am writing this letter in support of the special permit applications before you this evening regarding 72 Pleasant Street at 72-80 Pleasant Street to allow kennel use and overnight boarding services at the downtown PAW. In February of 2022, Ms. Krushank took her passion for animals and combined her experience in working in doggy daycares along with her skills as a trainer and background in business to open up the downtown PAW as a place that animals not only are cared for, but thrive. As the mission of the downtown PAW says, we believe that daycare should be more than just a day of play. We can structure your dogs to be filled with both mental and physical stimulation, free play, training, and more. At the downtown PAW, your dog's happiness, safety, and well-being comes first. Clients have repeatedly requested the addition of boarding services so they can leave their pet in a familiar place with the care and attention they deserve while they are away. I firmly believe this is a wonderful addition to the services offered by the downtown PAW, so clients have a place that they can go for their pet's needs: daycare, training, grooming, and with this special permit, boarding. As a dog owner myself, I know the stress of leaving your four-legged family members overnight and is equally stressful for the animals, and I wholeheartedly offer my support to grant the special permit. Again, I wholeheartedly offer this letter in support of granting the special permits this evening. If you require any additional information, please feel free to contact me. Respectfully submitted, Peg Crow, Ward 1 City Councilor.
Thank you, Diane. And I assume that's the only one that you have?
That's the only one I have, yeah.
There are, Mr. Chair, there are several that the petitioner's emailing me now, so I can either pass this to Diane to read or I can just read them. She's
While you
just,
have it, why don't you-
okay. So one, it's to whom it may concern, this letter is to inform you that I am Catherine's Paw Business, that I am for Catherine's Paw Business to expand to board pets overnight. Catherine has been a valuable asset to the business community here in the square. I hope the board grants her wish so that she can expand her business. Sincerely, Neil Sullivan, owner, Cornucopia Foods, 61 Pleasant Street, Malden. And that one was sent by email dated August 14th, 2024 from Neil Sullivan of Cornucopia Foods. Also, there is an email dated August 14th, 2024. It reads, Dear Malden Planning Board, I, Neashan Thana Thirampong, is one of the management team at 00 Ramen in Donbury. It comes to my understanding that Downtown PAW is seeking a special permit to provide overnight boarding for dogs at their location at 72 Pleasant Street. I'm writing to show my support to my fellow business owner at Downtown PAW, Catherine, to obtain the permit to do so. Best regards, Nisashan Thanang Thirampong, 00 Ramen in Donbury, 74 Pleasant Street, Malden, Mass. That was emailed August 14, 2024. Then there is another email dated August 13th, 2024. It reads, to whom it may concern. We are the owners of Bodeborg Boston and a dog named Jordan and have been both a customer of and a neighbor to the Downtown PAW since they opened. They have been wonderful as both. We are confident that they would manage overnight boarding responsibly in a way that was safe and had no negative impact on any Malden residents or businesses. We write in support of them being allowed to offer this service to their clients. Please feel free to contact us at this email address or the cell phone number below with any questions. Best regards, Chad Ellis and Trish Blaise, owner and CEO, Bodeborg Boston. Those are...
And that's all we have?
Those are the three I received. I know the petitioner mentioned a petition. I don't know if she has that to send, or you just want to note that she referenced there was a petition.
Yeah, we can note that there was a petition.
Yeah.
Okay, if you turn it in, thank you.
Submit that, yeah. And,
Thank you.
yes, thanks. And just be careful of the step there. And I did want to note that the Bodeborg address is 82-90 Pleasant Street. So that's abutting this building. Okay, thank you. Diane, do you want to read that? Thank you. And then I just want to see that petition if I could so we can make a reference. I'm not going to read it, but Diane can.
Thank you.
This is to the Malden Planning Board, dated August 11th, 2024. To the Malden Planning Board, it is my understanding that the owners of Downtown Paw have applied for a special permit to provide overnight boarding for the dogs at their location on 72 Pleasant Street in Malden Center. I wish to convey to the city that I, as a fellow business owner, am in full support of the decision to do so. Sincerely, Douglas Tran and staff, All Seasons Table, 64 Pleasant Street, Malden.
Thank you, Diane.
And then I just want to note, so this is a petition, and it's been signed by 114 people. They've given their name and address. Some are Malden addresses. It looks like some are Everett, some others Boston, Melrose, Roslindale. And it reads, Downtown Paw is currently applying for a kennel license through the city of Malden. This license will allow us to board dogs and cats overnight at our current location, 72 Pleasant Street. A petition showing support from our customers can go a long way in a city hearing. Please put your name and address to sign our petition. Thank you. And that is the petition that I just referenced, the 114 names.
Thank you.
And this is in favor as well.
Okay, is there anything else in favor? Seeing and hearing none, declare that part of the hearing closed. Is there anyone that would like to speak in opposition to the petition? Anyone to speak in opposition? Diane, anything to read in opposition?
No, I don't.
Thank you. Seeing and hearing no one else in opposition, declare that part of the hearing closed. Michelle, can you take us through your staff report and recommendation, please?
Yes. So this is the staff planning report and recommendation dated August 14th, 2024. I will not read it verbatim into the record, but it's incorporated herein by reference into the record. So the property is located on the southern side of Pleasant Street, northern side of Exchange Street. It's in the block between Middlesex and Washington Streets. It's a through lot, so the building fronts on Pleasant Street and Exchange Street, 2 to 4 stories due to the grade change. Giving you the current occupation, this was provided by the property owner of the other businesses that are in the building in addition to the petitioner's business. So 72 Pleasant Street's is subject to the petition. We heard about her current business and the proposal. These are the plans that were filed with the petition. As you know, there's a revised floor plan, proposed floor plan dated August 14th that was presented. And petitioner did submit a waiver request for an updated site plan, floor plans of the entire building and building exterior elevations because no changes proposed to those areas of the building or property. The property is classified as part of the Central Business Zoning District. Petitioner's existing dog, cat daycare is classified as retail services, which is allowed by right in this district. The proposed overnight boarding is classified as kennel use, which may be allowed by special permit in the district. Existing businesses such as restaurants, retail sales, recreation for gainful business that are also in the building are allowed by right. City zoning ordinance contains a definition of kennel. It's here for your reference. And so they would need to comply with these 4 criteria to be considered kennel use. The direct abutter to the east is the building with a restaurant, offices, artist live work units, and recreation for gainful business. To the west, recreation for gainful business. To the north, on the other side of Pleasant Street, general offices. To the south, on the other side of Exchange Street, a restaurant, recreation for gainful business. An off-site parking facility, the CBD garage. Surrounding land uses, restaurants, retail sales, retail services, recreation for gainful business, bank offices, off-site parking facilities, multifamily residential dwellings. The building on the subject property complies with all dimensional controls. The proposal does not create any violation of dimensional controls. The existing proposed business uses of the property do not require parking. Given that allowed non-residential uses in the Central Business Zoning District do not have to conform to off-street parking requirements, loading is not required with adequate on-street loading certified by the Traffic Commission. There's no parking or loading on site. The proposal does not create any violations or requirements. The proposal requires no traffic impact study per your rules and procedures. The findings you would need to make to grant a special permit: 1, excuse me, any creation or increase in violation of dimensional controls or parking requirements will not be more detrimental to the neighborhood. 2, the traffic and traffic patterns generated by the proposed use will not adversely impact any of the surrounding streets or create a traffic or safety hazard. 3, the proposed use will not be more detrimental to the neighborhood. 4, the proposed use is not in conflict with surrounding land uses. 5, the proposed use is in the interest of the common good. So provided that was made, that recommendation, the recommendations made prior to public hearing, provided that the board makes the required findings. The recommendations that a special permit be granted subject to the following conditions. 1, all development shall be as per plans, except as modified by these conditions. Minor modifications of floor plan are allowed. 2, the special permit allows kennel use only on the same premises and operated as accessory to the dog cat daycare use of 4,066 square feet on the first floor, at the storefront space known as 72 Pleasant Street. 3, the kennel use allowed by this special permit allows overnight boarding for only cats and dogs and no other animals. 4, maximum, and I was going to suggest you specify a number of animals may be boarded overnight, but we can talk about that in a minute. 5, obtain license from City Council for extended overnight hours. So the hours of operation, according to city ordinance right now, for this type of business, I believe this is considered a retail store, so it's 6 a.m. to 11 p.m., but to do the overnight, they will need to apply to the City Council for an extended overnight hours license to operate. 6, install, repair, replace sidewalks and driveways, perform necessary incidental work adjacent to the property to the satisfaction of the DPW director. Same thing as the last. This is special permit run with the property, so this will be reviewed by the DPW director to see if there's anything that needs to be done. Back to condition 4, I'm not sure now at this point whether you would specify this or not. Thinking you may not put, I probably at this point, after hearing more about the business, probably recommend you not specify a number, only because it's my understanding now the 45 number may change. And or if you specify a number and the number changes, the petitioner will have to come back to amend the special permit. So I'm thinking if you are comfortable with the board of the animal control officer setting the number, then that will be the number. If it ends up ever being higher than 45, it is. If it's lower, it's lower. I think it's beyond my expertise to figure out. I thought there would be a way you could figure out the number, but it sounds like there may be some flexibility needed. So I would recommend you not look at condition 4. You eliminate that.
Okay, so remove condition 4
Yes.
from the staff recommendation.
Yes.
Yes, Ms.
In regards to the DPW, Peg Crow spoke to Bob Knox on my behalf today, and he called and we spoke, and he said that he is already satisfied with the requirements outside for sidewalks and DPW.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
So what will then happen when they go to issue the permit, Nelson will check in and he will get that same information. Everything's in order, so compliance with the condition will be determined.
And Miss, have you heard, and I think you've said that you've seen these, you're in agreement with all the conditions?
Yes.
Okay, and that's noting that number 4 will be removed.
Number 4, okay.
That's the one that establishes a maximum number of stays you can have in one night. Okay. Thank you. Ken Antonucci. Anyone else have any questions for Michelle? No questions. Is there a motion? Ken Antonucci.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to accept the planner's recommendation to approve the special permit with the 5 conditions.
Thank you. And Henry Susi.
Thank you. I'd like to second that motion.
Thank you very much. So Ken's made a motion on the recommendation of staff with the 5 conditions, and then Henry's seconded that. So let me get queued up. Okay.
So a yes vote is to grant the special permit with 5 conditions. Ken Antonucci?
Yes.
Diane Chuha?
Yes.
Tawadej Gilbert Salassi?
Yes.
Risa Gray?
Yes.
Patrick Hayes?
Yes.
Eric Henry?
Well, give me one second, Eric. Thank you. There you go.
Yes.
Eric McCush?
Yes.
Henry Susi?
Yes.
Chuck Ioven?
Yes, petition's been granted with conditions. Good luck with it.
I'm just going to quickly take a picture of this petition. Do you want the petition back, or do you want me to scan it and send it back to you?
I could scan it and send you the copies if I could have the original.
Okay, I'll just take a quick picture now then.
Okay, sure.
Set, Michelle? Okay, Diane, can you read the notice for the public meeting for? There is no notice, okay.
I can.
Okay, Michelle, if you can give us an update?
Yes, so this is a petition that was made under the Subdivision Control Law, Mass General Laws, Chapter 41, Section 81S, and the rules and regulations of the Malden Planning Board governing the subdivision of land. It's regarding Zero State Highway, which is parcel ID 185-575506, permit application number CMID 066920, 2024. It's an application for tentative approval of preliminary plan and a request for waivers of the submission requirements, Section 4.C.2, Section 4.C.2E, and Section 4.C.2H, and a waiver of design standards, Section 5C3, to subdivide 14.36 acres at the western end of Overlook Ridge Drive to create 4 new lots in 1 parcel. This is being reviewed and discussed at a public meeting. There's no requirement for a public hearing. The decision regarding a preliminary plan application may not be appealed, and land on the plan is subject to an 8-year freeze of zoning in effect at the time a preliminary plan is submitted, if a definitive plan is submitted and approved within 7 months. So the subject property, which is approximately 14.36 acres, is the remaining vacant and undeveloped part of a larger development site comprised of approximately 99 acres, 54 acres in Malden, 45 acres in Revere, formerly the site of Rose Quarry. You have a copy of the subdivision plan that was presented and filed. All land in Malden is developed for multifamily residential use, namely 1,244 rental apartment units and 10 buildings, except for convenience store and 1 building at 10 Overlook Ridge Drive. In Revere, there are approximately 733 units and 4 buildings, and a joint Malden-Revere fire station. The property is classified as part of the zoning district Rose Quarry Reclamation and Redevelopment District, which is RQ-RRD Subdistrict 3, RQ3. Current zoning for RQ-RRD, RQ3 allows only certain business uses, requires site plan review, and requires all development to comply with the master plan for the site. You have a copy of that plan in the package. That's the colorized plan, the 11 by 17 sheet. That is the most recent master plan approved. It's called the Master Concept Plan, dated July 17th, 2024. So it looks like this. This is the colored plan. This is showing the buildings that we were just talking about, the existing development. There is a pending zoning amendment proposal to amend use regulations for RQ3 subdistrict to allow multifamily residential use, set requirements to development, dimensional parking requirements. That was City Council Paper 286 of 2024. You held the joint public hearing on that July 24th, 2024. You submitted your recommendation to the City Council, and the Council must act by October 22nd, 2024, or a new hearing is required. Other requirements for this land, or the development of the larger site, is subject to compliance with the land reclamation agreement between the property owners and the cities of Malden and Revere, in effect since January 2001, currently extended through March 2027. Also, the Massachusetts Environmental Policy Act, MEPA review and certificates issued since 1999, most recently January 22nd, 2024, with the 5th notice of project change. There have been several prior subdivision approvals. Overlook Ridge Drive was originally constructed as part of a definitive plan of subdivision approved by this board November 13, 2002. The extension of the roadway and cul-de-sac were approved but not constructed in their entirety. They're part of the definitive plan of subdivision approved by this board January 9, 2014. You have a copy of that plan attached. Also an 11 by 17 that shows the cul-de-sac ending the extension of Overlook Ridge Drive. So the application that's before you now is a plan that proposes to create 4 new lots, 13A, 13B, 14A, and 14B, and then also a future roadway connection to Route 1, including a ramp system, will be on a parcel also shown on this plan. Giving you the breakdown of the square footage, I won't read those into the record. I will note I'm reading from this report dated August 14th, 2024. So you have the plans that were submitted. The proposal is also seeking waivers. Waivers of requirements of your rules and regulations governing the subdivision of land. Detailed explanations and reasons for the requests are provided on sheet C6 of the plans. The first waiver requested has to do with the requirement regarding a drainage system. The requirement is that the plan shall contain the following: proposed system of drainage, including adjacent existing natural waterways in a general manner. The plan submitted does not depict the proposed drainage system. Petitioner's reason for the request is the detailed design to be reviewed during site plan review of future proposal. There's a letter from the city engineer we'll read into the record regarding that. Also, they're seeking a waiver of submission requirements regarding topography. The requirement is that the plan shall contain the topography of the land in a general manner. The plan submitted depicts existing topography but no proposed grading. Petitioner's reason for the request is the grading to be reviewed during site plan review of the future proposal. Again, we'll read from the city engineer's letter. And then finally, they're seeking a waiver of the design standards for lots and blocks, the frontage requirements. The requirement is that the lots shall be of a size, shape, width, and frontage as required by city zoning ordinance. When there's no requirement, frontage shall be at least 20 feet. That's a subdivision control law rule. The plan submitted with the proposes two parcels, lot 13B and lot 14B, with no frontage. So 13A and 14A have frontage along Overlook Ridge Drive. 13B and 14B do not. The petitioner's reason for the request is that frontage will be provided by internal access roadways to be constructed. As noted in the notes, so the frontage will be provided in accordance with the city zoning ordinance. The city zoning ordinance for the Road Quarry Redevelopment Reclamation District allows frontage to be provided via internal access drives. So they're basically seeking a waiver from the state subdivision control law requirement, not our zoning requirement. Findings required to grant a waiver. The planning board may waive strict compliance with rules and regulations and with frontage or access requirements specified in the subdivision control law with such action as, 1, in the public interest, and 2, not inconsistent with the intent and purpose of the subdivision control law. I've provided the purpose of the subdivision control law. These are excerpts from the state law, chapter 41, section 81M. I'm not going to read these. You can see what they say if you want to take a minute, what the purposes are. Review by city departments. The proposed plan was submitted for review to the following. It was submitted to the Public Works Commission. No comments were received to date. I will note, for a definitive plan, the DPW approval must be a condition of the planning board's approval. 2, Board of Health. No comments were received to date. For definitive plan, no report is deemed approval. 3, city engineer. Comments were provided in correspondence dated July 8th, 2024 from city engineer M.G.L. You have a copy of that in your package, and I think we should, do you want to read that into the record, or you just want to reference it?
Read it into the record, please.
So it's dated July 8th, 2024. It reads, Dear Ms. Romero, the Malden Engineering Department will provide review of the proposed system of drainage and grading design for lots 13A, 13B, 14A, and 14B through the Rose Quarry Site Plan Review Committee. The Road Quarry Site Plan Review Committee has previously approved the site master plan and design of the final 4 lots at the site is consistent with this prior review approval. The engineering department will coordinate review of the proposed drainage and grading conditions as part of our review of this final phase of the project and in conjunction with ongoing review of the overall site utilities and grading conditions. Please contact this office if you have any further questions. Signed, Yem-Lip, PE Director and City Engineer. I will note that the Road Quarry Site Plan Review Committee has not approved the master plan and design. I believe he's referring to the Joint Planning Task Force, which did review the master plan. They're the ones that review that plan that you have a copy of. It's not the Site Plan Review Committee, so I just want to note that. Fire Department, no comments were received to date. Police Department comments were provided in an email correspondence dated August 12, 2024 from Chief Cronin. Shall I read that into the record?
Yes, please.
So this is
Just the first section, not the whole email chain.
right. Just the email. This is from Glenn Cronin to me, dated Monday, August 12, 2024. It reads, Good morning, Michelle. As you know, Overlook Ridge Development houses a significant number of individuals. Our in-house records indicate 1,461 calls for service, any and all events related to the various addresses in the last 12 months. These calls for service include 842 vehicles towed from the property for trespassing. This involves the contracted tow company to respond to the MPD with the trespass vehicle form. This is noteworthy because each of these trespass tows is to be entered into our system, requiring time and effort of an officer or cadet. It's also a good indication that there is no oversight as far as who is coming and going on the property. We've experienced serious crime in the development, to include a young lady being tragically shot and succumbing to her wounds. Subsequent to that, a state trooper's rifle was stolen from his cruiser while parked in the garage. While these incidents can happen anywhere, at any time, having some sort of guardianship would have assisted us in our follow-up investigations. When I say guardianship, I am referring to a surveillance system that could identify all vehicles entering and exiting the complex. Flock camera technology is on the cutting edge of surveillance technology, and I respectfully request that Overlook Ridge Management install a flock camera at its entrance located at Overlook Ridge Drive and Salem Street. In addition to this location, if a second point of ingress-egress is used for the plan proposal connecting to Route 1, I would request a second flock camera installed. The City of Malden currently utilizes flock technology, and I would respectfully insist that flock cameras be the camera of choice. Bast Glenn, Chief Glenn T. Cronin, Malden Police Department, 800 Eastern Avenue, Malden, Mass.
Thank you.
You all have a copy of that in your package as well. In Building Department, no comments were received to date. So I'll stop here if anybody has any questions or about any information that's in the package. This is just discussed at a public meeting, so we're not hearing a presentation from the petitioner, taking any public testimony or public comment.
The only comment I have, Michelle, if you could speak to this briefly, this is the same petition that came into us in January that we denied. Could you speak to a little bit about what's different about this one versus the previous one?
Yes, that was actually, Mr. Chair, last September.
September?
Yes, the preliminary subdivision plan they filed last September, 2023. It looks substantially the same in terms of the division of lots proposed on the plan. What's different is we now have additional information about that the petitioner has provided, explaining their reason for the request for waivers of frontage, providing some of the legal research and information to explain the reason for the request, to explain the correlation, or at least their proposed interpretation of the connection between state subdivision control law and city zoning ordinance. There is one waiver they're no longer requesting that they previously did, which has to do with the scale of plan, so that has been corrected. Previously, they were also, so that the first thing I said had to do with the frontage. We received a lot of information, or additional information about, Ken, we received additional information from the petitioner regarding the frontage waiver, regarding the grading and drainage waiver sought. We now have documentation from the city engineer that he will be reviewing that as part of the site plan review process. We did not have that before. So basically we have additional supporting documentation. So they're still seeking the same waivers except for the scale of plans waiver. When we get to the recommendation, I'll also explain why the recommendation is to grant the waivers, but then also if you move forward to grant the approval of the application, you add additional conditions. So in the event any of the zoning changes and some of these reviews are not required, you will still be ensured that these issues will be addressed with grading, drainage, and frontage.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else have any other questions for Michelle? There don't seem to be. Michelle, could you take us through your recommendation?
So the planning recommendation is provided the board makes the required findings to grant the requested waivers. And again, those are looking at the purpose and intent of the subdivision control law. So the first recommendation is to grant the requested waiver of section 4C2E, submission requirements regarding drainage system, subject to review and approval of the proposed drainage system by the city engineer before the earlier of issuance of the site plan review approval or a building permit. 2, to grant the requested waiver of section 4C2H, submission requirements regarding topography, subject to review and approval of the proposed grading by the city engineer before the earlier of issuance of site plan review approval or a building permit. 3, to grant the requested waiver of section 5C3, design standards for lots and blocks regarding frontage requirements for only 2 lots of the same approximate size and location as lots 13B and 14B as shown on the plan. 4, to grant the application for tentative approval of the preliminary plan, subject to the following conditions. A, the maximum number of buildable lots shall be 4 of the same approximate size and location as lots 13A, 13B, 14A, and 14B as shown on the plan. B, internal access drive shall be constructed to provide frontage for lots 13B and 14B, and right-of-way access easements in perpetuity shall be recorded and maintained to provide access for lots 13B and 14B. I will note that they did show right-of-way and access easements on the plan already for those lots. C, grading shall be reviewed by city engineer and is subject to his reasonable approval before the earlier of issuance of site plan review approval or a building permit. D, drainage system shall be reviewed by city engineer and is subject to his reasonable approval before the earlier of issuance of site plan review approval or a building permit. And E, install a flock surveillance camera or other camera type approved by Malden Police Chief at site entrance exit located at intersection of Overlook Ridge Drive and Salem Street. And upon construction of connection of Overlook Ridge Drive with Route 1, install a second flock surveillance camera or other camera type approved by Malden Police Chief at site entrance exit located at Overlook Ridge Drive and Route 1. Now, I will note your preliminary plan approval does not have any, it's really to provide comments and feedback to the petitioner. It doesn't have any binding legal, it's not legally binding, so when the definitive plan comes, you can add conditions, you should be reviewing that application. This is just to give them guidance. They're preparing to file for the definitive plan. Well, you'll have a full-blown hearing and everything, and then you will make a legally binding, appealable decision. So just wanted to give you that little bit of background. We don't do these that often, but preliminary plan filing is required when it involves non-residential lots. So this was required. They had to go through this preliminary filing step.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Does anyone have any questions for Michelle? No questions from Michelle. Is there a motion? Ken Antonucci.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to accept planner's recommendations to grant the requested waivers with the 4 conditions.
Very good.
Could I just note, so the waivers are the first 3, and then the 4th is to grant the application for tentative approval. Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Okay. So grant the 3 waivers and then grant the tentative approval.
You all set, Michelle?
Yeah, just want to make sure
Okay.
it's clear for the
Eric
record.
Henry, please.
I'd like to second that motion.
Eric Henry seconds it.
So a yes vote will be to grant the 3 waivers and to grant grant approval of the grant tentative approval of the application. Grant the application for tentative approval. Okay.
Yes. Okay, let me cue things up here. Okay, so we get Ken. Okay, go ahead.
Ken Antonucci?
Yes.
Diane Chuha?
Yes.
Tawadej Gebrselassie?
Yes.
Risa Gray?
Yes.
Patrick Hayes?
Yes.
Eric Henry?
Yes.
Eric McCush?
Yes.
Henry Susi?
Yes.
Chuck Ioven?
Yes. Petitions, what is this? The request for 3 waivers and tentative approval have been approved, 9 to 0.
Right.
Very good, thank you very much. Okay, We'll go, once Michelle's ready, we will go into status updates. Eric, do you have a status update from the CPC?
Yes, I can give us an update. CPC is definitely taking, we did our application workshop. We received a round of applications, and we're going to make some initial votes on those applications probably in our next meeting. We also had a new member come on board, Sam Waters. See, just his first meeting was, last meeting we had was June, I believe. And lucky guy, he's now the vice chair, co-chair. I'm no longer the co-chair. I cried, yeah, I did. But, and yeah, CPC is moving on, we're good.
Very good, thank you very much.
I don't know when my term is up, though, so you guys keep that in mind, though. I mean,
Okay, thank you. Michelle, master planning activities.
Sure, I think the terms for you can go indefinitely. It's the citizen reps that have the limited terms. I think Planning Board, Housing Authority, Concom, Historical Commission, you can go on and on forever. Unending terms.
It's negotiable, yes.
Okay. But anyway, I don't think you have a term limit there. So the update, what I've been doing is asking the Office of Strategic Planning Community Development for an update every month for the board. So that's what you have in your package. You're welcome to take that home. This month's update is dated August 13th, 2024. The reason we're asking OSPCD is because they're overseeing, managing both these projects. The master plan, which is now known as a comprehensive plan, and also the open space and recreation plan. So you have a couple updates in this memo. Like I said, you could take those home, read that. That is what I have
Okay, thank you for that.
for updates.
For both the
Yes.
open space
Yes.
and the open
So
space.
they're both covered in that memo. Master plan is, like I said, now called comprehensive plan. I guess that's the new
Okay,
fangled term.
very good. Thank you very much for those updates, guys. Next order of item on the agenda, Ken Antonucci. Yes. Hold on. Yes, Ken.
I just had a question on the master plan or the comprehensive plan. So in the letter, it says reaching out to the other communities to see how they handle it? Or
Yes,
how
right now,
they're
we're still
approaching it?
trying to get a sense of how much this plan would cost. So they're looking at a couple surrounding communities to see what they did for their plan, cost, scope, things like that, because they are going to be, we're going to be doing an RFP for consultant services for the plan, but we don't know how much to put in for the RFP, what the scope of services, et cetera. So also, there's still the big question of funding. So they're still, we're still intending to fund it with CDBG funds and state funds. So, you know, we don't know yet the scope of the plan or the cost of the plan or how the plan is being funded. So the open space plan has a deadline of this year. It's not funny. It sounds funny, but it's not funny. That's why that more, I think, effort is and focus is being put on that, because that we need to file, that has to be done every 7 years. I believe it's every 7 years.
You all
Maybe
set,
5.
Ken?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, next item on the agenda is election of officers for the planning board. I am unable to chair during this, so I will turn it over to Ken Antonucci, the vice chairman, and he can run the elections for the chairman, and then we will swap again, and we'll have the elections for the vice chairman and the clerk. So, given that, I will vacate the seat, and I will turn it over to Ken. So, go ahead.
Turn the mic on.
Well, if you want to see
Just want to sit in
this.
this one?
Yeah.
The wheels work? Okay. Just give me a second. All right, so as the current chair, Chuck Iovan, has stated, the first position we will vote on is the election of the chair of the planning board. And do we have anyone that would like to make a nomination?
You're going to click on the name.
Yeah. Oh, I gotta get rid of me.
That's you?
Yeah. Okay, Eric McCush.
I'd like to nominate Chuck Iovan to be the chair.
Okay, Eric has nominated Chuck Iovan for chair. So we have a second. Diane?
I second that.
Okay. Eric is nominated, Diane has seconded. Do we have any other nominations? Any other nominations for chair? Seeing and hearing none, we'll move on to Michelle, does it need to be just a voice vote, or is it a roll call vote?
I think it can be either. I
Okay.
think if there were multiple nominations, we would need to do roll call.
Okay, so I guess we're just all in favor of Chuck Iovan returning as chair of the planning board, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none. So unanimous. Chuck Iovan return as chair of the planning board. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And I will relinquish my microphone and back to Chuck.
Well, thank you all very much. So we'll move on to the next position. The next position will be vice chair. And at this time, I'll take any nominations. Eric Henry.
I nominate Ken Antonucci.
Okay, Eric Henry has nominated Ken Antonucci for vice chair. Is there a second for that?
I'll second that.
Eric McCush has seconded the nomination for Ken for vice chair. Are there any other nominations that would like to be entered? No other nominations? All those in favor of Ken Antonucci as vice chair of the planning board, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Congratulations, Ken. Unanimously.
Thank you, everyone.
And now for the final roll we'll be voting on for the clerk for the planning board. Is there anyone who would like to make a nomination? Henry Susi.
Yes, I'd like to nominate Diane Chuha.
Henry's nominated Diane Chuha for the role. Is there a second? Ken Antonucci.
Second that.
Ken seconded the nomination of Diane as clerk of the planning board. Are there any other nominations? No other nominations. All those in favor of Diane Chuha as clerk of the planning board, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Congratulations, Diane, as clerk of the planning board. Okay, it's 8:44. The only other thing is that I see on the agenda, Michelle, correct me if you see if there's something else I missed, is the next meeting is scheduled for September 11th. So if folks will have a problem with that, if you could please let Michelle know. If you know now, let us know. But that's what our next scheduled meeting is, depending on how quickly Row Quarry comes back. They could be a potential candidate, and then, other than that, there aren't a lot of things in the pipeline at the moment.
Yeah, there's nothing in the pipeline that's ready, so.
Right. So, okay, with that said, is there a motion to adjourn?
I'd like to make that motion.
Diane Chuha, second. Tawada Jagabra Salasi, seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Enjoy the rest of the summer, everyone. Yeah. Thank you very much.